Hello everyone, Namaste to all, much peace, much light. It's a pleasure to be here with you again today for this broadcast. And the topic we've chosen today is one that's been highly requested by our audience, right? It's a topic to talk about what happens to people who commit suicide after death. So what happens when spirits take their own lives here? How are these spirits received on the other side? How does that work? So we're going to talk about this, okay? So let's get started. I've already accompanied out of body several spirits who had committed suicide. In fact, I had a close friend from our group who, after some time, also took his own life. And he was a spiritualist. So it is truly important for us to be fully aware of this situation and to deeply understand what exactly happens in these cases. So follow along with me. So the very first and most important question we're going to inquire about here is why exactly indeed? People commit suicide Let's pay attention. Let's list these details. It's very important to understand this, everyone. So take a good look. What leads people to take their own lives? So, number one, there was some underlying reason for their deep and profound unhappiness. Some compelling reason led them to a state of intense anguish and subsequently to a state of deep and persistent depression. So, a profound deep depression. So this really deep depression, this quite profound anguish, right? Which can be, take note, something truly very, really passionate. In other words, fights between couples, breakups between boyfriends and girlfriends, separations between couples. This ultimately leads one of these vulnerable individuals to a profound state of anguish, of deep depression, where they genuinely see no viable way out and tragically end up committing suicide because of this dire situation. Another common situation in which people also tragically commit suicide is for, let's say, significant professional reasons. Something happens at work, something doesn't go well, he gets fired, and he goes into conflict, right? He also falls into a deep anguish, can't see a way out, he's really in debt, right? He becomes very distressed because he doesn't have money to pay his bills, to support his family, and so he ends up committing suicide. But you'll notice that 90% of suicides are actually due to passion, as incredible as it may seem, right? So, in this professional context, for example, in Japan, when politicians are caught red-handed, the dishonor is so great that they commit suicide. So there's also suicide for the sake of honor. Do you understand? So there are many different reasons that can lead a person to suicide. Do you want to see then to the feeling of guilt? So the feeling of guilt can also lead a person to suicide. They make a mistake, they do something wrong, and that feeling of guilt is so overwhelming that they can't bear to live with it. So they turn to suicide, okay? Do you want to see another thing, another reason that maybe you haven't? It's revenge. You might not realize it, but revenge is also a reason. In other words, the suicidal person has certain characteristics. For example, I'm going to kill myself because of you. And they even leave a note. It was you, it was because of you. They want to inflict a feeling of guilt on someone else. So, I'm going to get revenge on you. You abandoned me, you left me, it's your fault that I'm committing suicide. So do you understand? They put the blame on the other person. So their act is an act of revenge. They take revenge on the person for making them go through that. I'm going to commit suicide. It's your fault. Do you get it? It's a game that some suicidal people play. Of course, there are many other reasons, right? We don't need to list them all here. First, we need to understand why someone who is suicidal wants to end their life. So, another important point, right? What do they believe will happen with suicide? They think that everything will be over, everything will end, especially atheists. So atheists, those who don't believe in life after death, right? In life after death, they believe. So for them, the act of suicide is perceived as a relief, a way to relax. They think, everything will be over. I don't want to live through this situation anymore. I can't take it, so I end my life. Thank you. Everything will be over. So, because the suffering, see, they have the feeling, the idea that the suffering they're going through will end with suicide. He's going to take his own life, so all that reason for suffering he experienced, all the dishonor, all the anguish will cease to exist after the suicide. So this is the awareness most people who commit suicide have, because they don't know the consequences of this real spiritual suicide, and that's what we're going to talk about here. The idea behind our talk is to give a warning so that people understand that suicide leads nowhere. On the contrary, it leads to more suffering, more anguish. It makes the situation worse. The first important point we're going to discuss here is that suicide does not relieve any kind of pain, anguish, suffering, or problem the individual may be going through. So suicide is never the solution. No matter how disturbed or anguished a person may be while going through a difficult moment, they need to solve the problem. They need to face it here. Why? Otherwise, they carry this problem with them after death. It's no use. They take the problem with them after death. And that's what we're going to discuss here. Well, very good. So, let's try to understand the situation of someone who has committed suicide right after their death. What exactly happens to them immediately after they take their own life? There are several situations as well, okay? Let's go. It's simply not truly possible to generally state that all individual cases are entirely identical, precisely speaking. So, on the other side, that's not the case. It's not. So, how exactly are individuals who commit suicide really received after their death? So let's go. Number one, let's think this through together. First case, consider a person who in this world is genuinely kind, deeply loving, possesses a wide circle of many cherished friends, never intentionally harms anyone. In fact, quite the opposite, actively likes to extend a helping hand to others, thereby embodying the essence of a truly good and benevolent individual. And in a moment of anguish and weakness, this person then commits suicide. So what happens? What I'm about to say is very important. Many people here in our material world would love to help this person. Sometimes these people don't seek help. They don't look for a therapist. They don't look for a psychologist. And sometimes they don't even reach out to friends when they're facing a problem like this. They don't ask for help. Sometimes they have a certain pride and so on. So when they see no way out, when they're in very deep anguish, they end up taking their own life. But it's a shock for everyone, for all the friends, for everyone who truly and genuinely wanted to help this particular person, you know? So what exactly do people typically do? They pray a lot. They earnestly ask the higher powers to truly help this individual. Isn't that right? Oh. So in this case, I'll summarize. When a person is truly very good, their reception will quite literally be like this indeed. Pay attention to what I'm about to say. She commits the act of suicide and she falls asleep. She wakes up in a hospital. She wakes up finding herself already in a hospital on the other side, specifically in a clinic specialized in treating these particular cases. Have you watched that movie by Andre Luis called And Life Goes On? Many of you, my listeners, if you haven't watched it, you should. So you'll clearly see there that two individuals appear, right? They are going to have a very risky surgical procedure because they have a serious cancer diagnosis. And both of them die on the operating table, right? Since these people weren't very evil, they didn't stay in the lower regions. Where did they wake up? They woke up in the hospital. And it even took quite a while for the woman to fully realize that they were really dead, because they truly had absolutely no idea that they were dead. So, in the case of this suicide victim, the same thing will happen. So look, these people, those on the higher plane, the astral plane, there is indeed a fundamental law, which is truly the law of divine love. So the law of love truly applies to all these masters, these spiritual doctors who are on the other side, warmly welcoming individuals who have gone through this kind of clinical situation, like suicide. So here, there will be many therapists, so when this guy wakes up, he already wakes up in crisis. People give him some medicine, astral medicine specifically, and he genuinely doesn't remember what exactly happened. He doesn't remember right away. He's there. He doesn't know what happened. He doesn't remember the suicide situation. He doesn't remember how he committed suicide. He doesn't remember right off the bat. It takes some time for his memory to start coming back, and this is a technique where individuals are able to block off an area of the person's mind using technology with advanced equipment over there. And it's all done with truly advanced equipment, because these skilled individuals know every intricate area of the brain they're working on, meticulously monitoring too. So there are many advanced and effective techniques available to treat this individual. But what is the main and most significant thing that truly happens when this particular person starts to become fully aware? Then he certainly won't be able to easily free himself from this pressing problem and this difficult situation. So, when he truly starts to become fully aware, he then falls into a deep and profound anguish. Why is this? First, he firmly believed that the suffering would ultimately end. He believed that with the act of suicide, everything would disappear, everything would cease to exist. But he realized that the act of suicide didn't take his life, it only took his body. His body was destroyed by suicide. But his spirit, his soul did not, and his consciousness did not, and he wakes up there in the spiritual world. There comes a moment when he remembers everything. So then he falls into a deep depression and anguish, because he will realize the following situation: suicide was pointless, I am still alive, still conscious, and still living with that problem. That anguish, if my suicide was out of passion, I'm still the same. Anguished, sad, because my wife is with someone else. She left me to be with another man. She cheated on me and everything else. Who knows what else? And the situation hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. But there's a problem. I can't go back and interact down there anymore. I can't solve the problem down there. I'm no longer part of the material world. I'm in another dimension now of reality. So I'll have to accept this new path. Now it's a new journey. So that's one of the problems. That's precisely when professional therapists often come in with their specialized therapy, bringing about a significant change in consciousness and indeed a profound change in one's entire life philosophy. And of course, there is certainly a time for that. And that particular time truly depends on each individual mind, on each unique person. It depends on the level of strength each individual has to face the situation. Generally speaking, individuals who commit suicide are often emotionally fragile, and that is precisely why they choose to do so, because they cannot handle a very intense emotional burden. Consequently, it is obvious that on the other side, they will need a longer period of time to accept and adapt to this challenging condition. That suicide solves the problem because the person took their own life. And to take on a new spiritual journey, so now he will have two problems. First, to truly heal himself, technically speaking, from the profound reason that ultimately led him to commit suicide. This is something he absolutely could have done while he was still alive. By actively seeking professional help from a therapist, by genuinely reaching out to his trusted friends, and by ultimately choosing not to commit this tragic act. And trying to solve it in another way. Now, what if later on his wife comes back to him? You just never know. Anything can truly happen. Do you understand? Second, a new path to be followed. And the important thing is this: every time you are going to reincarnate on earth, there's a very long line. There are a lot of people wanting to come down to this planet, and sometimes there isn't an opening right away. Sometimes people wait 30, 50, 100, even up to 100 years between one incarnation and another. Do you understand? Waiting for a spot, waiting for the gate to come down. Waiting for the binding webs, because the binding webs they're linked to might have to wait to incarnate together, to incarnate nearby. So everything is a problem. Everything is a situation that will be renewed. So then the individual truly realizes that the significant mistake they made cut short an entire experience that was carefully planned for them. 9. In other words, they cut short a journey that could have lasted another 30 years, another 50 years here on earth, learning, experiencing through conflicts, emotions, and everything else. That's why we come down into matter. Then the pronostal will have to prepare a new incarnation. It will take some time. They will undergo treatment in the astral and will realize that they have to come down to fulfill these rescues and strengthen themselves in the next life in order to ascend further ahead. So that's one reason. Of course, suicide is always a mistake. It is always a mistake. Because you lose the opportunity that took a long time for you to get a spot to come down, incarnate, and live an experience in this world. A lot of energy was spent, a lot of preparation in the astral so you could come down. The family was planned, the place was planned, all the structural conditions were set by your karmic council. But free will is something the person has to handle with their own hands here. The planning can't interfere in a situation where they have to make the decision. They have to grow through that decision. All right? Very well. So let us now take a look at a second particular case then. Reason number 2. I'm going to the extremes, okay? Now I'm going to take a bad person, someone hated by everyone here, a criminal who, after being arrested and sent to jail, commits suicide. There are a lot of cases like that, aren't there? Aren't there a lot of cases like that? Where the criminal is a devil, a rapist, did this, killed 20 people and so on. Then when the police finally catch him, he just, boom, immediately kills himself. Okay? It's like a terrorist, just like a terrorist. A terrorist goes in, like those guys who went into that hotel in Russia with children, killed a bunch of people. When they see there's no way out, he commits suicide. So this is another type of suicide, okay? It's a completely different story. So, when an individual, let me put it this way, to be perfectly clear, is considered to be very bad according to society's established standards and prevailing concepts, when he is truly a really bad person, the astral plane does not go easy on him. Not at all. When he eventually wakes up, he will find himself in the umbral. So what is the umbral? It's a place, for example, you've seen that there are certain regions here on earth where spirits are all in this very dense state, full of intense hatred, with profound anger. And they form groups and want to dominate and want to, they don't want to do good, they don't want to move toward love, so they have to be gathered in a certain valley. And these guys go down to this place here, to the umbral. And there, he's going to have 2 truly quite significant problems, right? He'll also have all the reason why he committed suicide, it didn't solve the problem, it continues. And many spirits that he killed will be there chasing him, hating him. So there's a lot of hatred directed at this guy. Do you understand? There's a lot of hatred directed at this guy. No one is going to rescue him to take him to the astral hospital. They're not. They're going to let the guy struggle and suffer until he can't take it anymore. Got it? So life in the umbral is not easy because there it's that old story, like attracts like. After death, your energy leads you to a certain place, according to your vibration, according to your past energy, according to your karma, according to what you have sown. It's that thing. You reap what you sow. Oh, I've been to that place. I'm not afraid. I go into that place. Inside. I go, and I'll take on all those people there. That's how it is. The guy comes to bother me. I just say, go bother someone else. The spirits, because they don't have to do with us. But here it's a deep valley of intense hatred, right? A really, truly big one, full of relentless persecution. People constantly have to keep running and hiding, always. From whom? From their formidable adversaries. Their enemies. Right? It's a terrible valley. Here there are drug addicts, people who kill themselves through drugs. Because when someone uses a lot of drugs and dies of an overdose, for example, they're considered suicides. You know what? I'm going to say something quite significant here that will truly go against what a lot of people genuinely think, because I'm going to talk about some idols who are widely considered suicides. People who, in some truly extreme and dangerous sports, risk their very lives to ultimately gain widespread fame, significant success, and considerable power. Formula One racing. A car going at 350, 400 kilometers per hour. When someone is in this game, do you agree that they're risking their life for their ego, to win first place, to be the best? So, these individuals are considered suicidal. Andre Luis was a doctor. Do you remember that he says he spent 8 years in the lower zones because he drank and was materialistic? He was an atheist. And the act of drinking is considered suicidal, but he always was. People weren't going to rescue him, right? You see, would a spirit go to rescue him? A spirit of light. But he was like, I don't even care, meaning he had no background. He didn't know what happens after death. Everything was new to him. Everything was different. He wasn't fully prepared for this challenging situation after death. So this individual goes through many, many significant problems to face, primarily because they truly lack essential knowledge. And on the other side, after death in the lower zones, where's the teacher? Where's Lala to give a lesson? There isn't one. People have to spend most of their time chasing each other, hiding. And the addict, for example, the guy who died of a drug overdose, he's going to look for drugs. He's in a depressive state. He's in a state of anguish. So the mind here, it's a very, very painful and truly agonizing experience. So truly, truly painful. These are intense feelings of deep, profound guilt and also a profound sense of persecution, right? Sadness, anguish. How many truly famous artists in the world have tragically died in this very same way? From drug overdose, cocaine, and such a terrible fate, and so on, right? On the other side, those guys suffer a lot. And you truly can't do anything at all. You absolutely can't go back in time. You cannot possibly rewind the tape of what has happened. Do you understand? Everything has to be resolved. From now on, everything has to be resolved moving forward. Now you have to accept it. Now you have to realize that there's another journey ahead in life. You can, even spiritually, truly help your beloved family, right? You possess the profound ability to always be present, constantly guiding and diligently protecting your own cherished family, right? However, what you regrettably did was a completely thoughtless and utterly inconsiderate act. And that thoughtless act led to this circumstance, these conditions. So there's no other way out. Now it's about moving forward. But the spirit takes time. A long time to accept the whole situation. It takes a long time to get used to this reality that it created itself. Because there in the astral plane, it is left with another very painful feeling, a feeling of guilt for having committed suicide. So this intense feeling of profound guilt really deeply destroys the person themselves when they truly realize the incredibly cowardly act they've committed. Why exactly is it considered a cowardly act? Because sometimes, you see, it's not an act of true heroism, right? It's often an escape from a difficult problem. This is quite different from the tragic suicide of a brave guy who's at war, right? 300 guys come to kill him. No, you're not going to get me. I'll kill myself first, right? Just like Gary, right, in prison, you know? The guys were going to hang him, they were going to shoot him with so many executions, but he took the cyanide capsule first. Didn't even go through the trial in prison, you know? So there are several. The guy dies with pride, you know? So those guys on the other side who kill themselves out of pride, out of ego, all that strength. Do you think they suffer on the other side? Not at all. They all wake up there in the lower realms, still feeling incredibly angry, deeply upset, and absolutely full of hatred for their enemy, you know? And that's precisely when he tries to call upon his loyal followers, and forms an elite group on the other side to wage a significant war over there. It's truly terrible to deal with these particular individuals, because they are very intelligent and cunning people. They don't care about the higher law, about love, about the cause. They are entirely about revenge. They are completely about hatred, right? Do you truly understand this? Losing a significant war for a high-ranking general, or indeed for any prominent soldier, is an absolutely terrible and devastating experience. Consequently, they harbor a profoundly deep and intense hatred for their enemy, you know? So that's why it's truly important for us to fully understand that there are many different and unique situations for people who die right after death, how they are received and how they themselves face waking up on the other side and remembering the act they committed, okay? it's really about sending good thoughts, good vibes to the people who have passed away. Do you understand? Good vibes, good prayers, and positive thoughts, and ask the spiritual realm to always help that person in the best way possible, with compassion and understanding. And you can be sure, no one is abandoned. Even people who are in the lower astral, they are under observation. All they have to do is want it, and they are helped. Because the spiritual realm, they have one thing. The therapists of the astral plane, they have a lot of love in their hearts, a lot of love, right? And they dedicate their lives intensely to truly helping others. So everyone who is in genuine need of help can be absolutely sure that they will be very well received in the spiritual realm, in the astral hospitals, in the therapeutic clinics of the spiritual world, and that no human being will ever be abandoned. Is that all just okay? And that truly all indeed. Namaste to you very much. I wish for all of you much light, much peace, and abundant tranquility to fill your lives.